or if you're in those years prior to 1979, okay? All right, I'm seeing here, poor Justin, you're having trouble talking, and am I not loud enough, you guys? Okay, Dr. Rinker says I'm okay, because I can get loud, as Dr. Moore knows. So we'll keep it at this level, and I hope that it works out for you. Okay, Justin, it's good now. Yay. For internship, again, if it was not accredited by APA or CPA, you have this other new kind of process, which is if you have an ABEP in an area consistent with the assignment. An ABEP, that board certification, it can only be from that board, not any other board. It could be in counseling, clinical, anything related to work within the VA, neuropsychology. I'm in clinical health psychology, boarded person. That has to be relevant to your assignment. The challenge with this is that it must have something related to your assignment, and you must maintain it over time. And heavens to Betsy, Dr. Steinberg, Dr. Roy, help me out. The presentation disappeared, but I'm going to keep going.
Okay, I think somehow the setup there changed. Okay, we can move you forward here.
Okay, woohoo! We'll keep going. So how do you find out about these positions? This is the tricky part, you guys. So the first thing I want to tell you is, you may not know about this, there's a mental health hiring initiative site. The thing I love about it, because if you've ever been on our other site, USA Jobs, that's kind of hard to navigate because it's got all jobs in there for VA. This thing is fantastic because it does this little noise effect is what it does. It goes, and it extracts all of the mental health positions into this one place, which I think is super cool. So any mental health position formally posted is on here, on this site. So I encourage you to use that. There's also some other extra tips. If you also want to go the traditional route, you certainly can do that and go to USA Jobs. The thing about USA Jobs that I really like, and I continue to do this because I'm just fascinated by it, you can go in and put in particular things that you're looking for. Like, I only want psychology jobs in the great state of Texas. And so you can narrow that down and have it that it emails you those searches, as often as you want, daily, weekly, or whatever. And as you continue to go in the VA, you may want to change your searches over time. Okay, well, now I really want a GS-14 program manager position. So you can continue to change that. And I love that because it mails it right to you. You can also create an account on USA Jobs where you can go ahead and upload your CV, a copy of your internship certificate, anything that you need related to there. And it holds on to it. It's like a repository. So when you go in there to apply again, it's all there for you. So I love that. I keep my transcripts on there. I keep my license on there. All of that's ready to go. The next, okay, and y'all are going to kind of laugh at me because you're going to go, I don't need this. I understand. I was like this too. I don't know why I'm shaking my finger at y'all. I'm shaking it at myself. But y'all really need to look at this option. It's talk to a VA recruiter. I don't know about you. I was never trained to talk to recruiters. I didn't know what they did until really the last couple of years. I've gotten to know our VA recruiters a lot more. They will be helping you to find jobs that aren't even posted yet. I mean, that's what I love because they have relationships with mental health chiefs across the country. And they are often the ones kind of sending resumes to chiefs, letting them know, hey, these folks are looking for jobs. So it's good to have a longer-term relationship with our recruiters. Some of them are just stellar. Larry Elliott is one of the folks I love. Matt, you've probably gotten to work with them. Recruiters are gold, Matt says. They're fantastic, and they will help you with positions that may not even come posted on USA Jobs because we don't have to post all positions on USA Jobs. So that's another way to be able to find openings. The other, and I didn't put this in here, y'all, I probably should have, is make sure you're going to conferences where there's VA chiefs around. APA, there's VA Day at APA Convention. There's the VA Psychology Leadership Conference. With our ability to non-competitively hire, a lot of jobs go this way before they even get to USA Jobs. So what we call down here in Texas, you got to grip and grin, handshake and a smile and give people your resumes. That still goes a long way as well. So as you go and you review qualifications, this is one of those things that I think that the image disappeared on, doggone it. So there's a beautiful Microsoft Smart Art object, but let me tell you the 3 steps. Is as you begin to look at positions, you want to read the occupation description, make sure you meet all those standards. And heavens, please make sure that you upload everything that shows that you meet those standards, your transcripts, etc. And then you'll review the job announcement, the requirements, and Dr. Rinker in a moment will talk a little bit about how to prepare your application. And then you may want to clarify with the recruitment specialist anything that you've got questions about. Now, here's my sneak peek, and this, thank goodness, has no smart art on it. These are some specific tips that will help you to keep in mind as you're preparing your application, what are chiefs looking for? And Dr. Moore and Dr. Brinker might add on this. I know this is what I was looking for as a psychology chief. My top priority was this, that the applicant displays a heart for serving veterans. And if you don't want to work with veterans and you're not passionate about that, that's fine. Go into academia, go into other places. But if you are, this needs to shine out. This is the #1 thing we're hiring for, is people who love veterans and want to serve veterans. Highlight your good training. And you guys are rock stars because you're already coming from VA training programs. Highlight when you have evidence-based psychotherapy training. Maybe you got a certificate in that already, or your doctoral program did that. If you have any prior work with military or with, of course, veterans, which you all do. And then any specific aspects for the position. If you have a background in integrated primary care, that's going to be very popular, or spinal cord injury, recovery-oriented services, those services that align with what we have in VA. The next is really, so much of what we do in VA, whether you're in traditional mental health services or PTSD clinic or blind rehab, all of these services promote interdisciplinary care. And so providing evidence of your expertise in working on a team, how you're a team player, how you work in collaboration, that interprofessional collaboration is key. Showing collaboration style, flexibility. Things change a lot and very quickly in the VA, and new initiatives come down. You guys have seen some of this. So showing flexibility and ability to respond, a willingness to learn, and a commitment. And you guys probably all bring this in. I saw a lot of you are trainees right now. It's commitment to give back to the next generation. We want to hire people who are invested in training. A few pet peeves. These are things that we just collected over the years from talking with chiefs. And I want to tell you, I'm not telling you not to advocate for yourself, but don't advocate for yourself before you have a job offer. You don't want to go in and negotiate things before you even know if they want you. That's a pet peeve that I know many people have stated. People are starting to talk about tours of duty, and I would like a step for this, and wait till you have the job offer. Don't assume that a particular credential you have makes you the best thing since sliced bread. You're competing against other very talented candidates, and so lots of people will have the particular credentials you have. And the last one is, this goes back to being a team player, not crediting those with whom you've worked, which allowed you to accomplish what you're speaking about. So as you're interviewing, highlight we, not I. Highlight opportunities that you've been given because of the work of others. Highlight how others have mentored you. This isn't a weakness. It's showing how you're a team player and you give credit back to the team. So those are a few tidbits from me, and I want to turn over to Dr. Rinker now to take over next steps. Josh?
Thanks, Dr. Kearney. Let's see. Let me make sure my levels are okay here. I just really wanted to use these last 10 minutes of the presentation to talk about some additional details, things you might want to keep in mind as you're going through your own job hunt, and kind of what stood out for me during my own recent job search. And I would encourage everyone on the call, if you have any questions over the next 10 minutes or so, put them into the text box, and we're going to start triaging those so people can, so that we can make sure that we address as many of them as possible at the end of the talk. So a lot of things involving the job search and the application process can seem pretty overwhelming at first. If you've never been on USA Jobs, I know I was pretty overwhelmed at first when I logged on there for the first time. But once you start familiarizing yourself with the setup, you get your alerts going, you get your documents uploaded. It becomes more natural to learn what is going to be necessary for each job. Even if you're not actively looking for a job right now, I would encourage you to create an account so you have a chance to play around with it a little bit. And like it is saying on the slide here, just make sure you're paying attention to all the details in a job posting. Each job is going to have a little bit, some different requirements. And so just make sure you're aware of that and you're really giving each application the time it deserves. Of course, making sure that you submit things by the deadline, paying attention to what time and day, what time zone a job closes in, and USA Jobs does have a help document to help you out with that process. So I thought this might be another of those slides where the additional details weren't showing up, but again, it's on the slides that you can download. So one step of the process is determining your grade and salary. This is determined by an organization that each VA has called the Professional Standards Board, or the PSB. They consider an applicant's professional credentials between receiving a verbal offer and a formal offer being sent to you. Psychologists generally are appointed at step 1 for the grade that they come in at. And certain specialized experience that might give you an increase in step has to take place after your degree is conferred. There are opportunities for a step increase when you first get hired, but this will require fairly specialized experience that not many psychologists coming out straight out of postdoc might have. A big thing that VA and psychology especially is involved with is getting current or former trainees recruited non-competitively. This means that for psychologists, VAs are not required to announce positions on USA Jobs. So there could be opportunities for you to go through this non-competitive hiring arrangement that the VA has, in part because there is such a need for psychologists. For a number of years, psychology has been in the top 5 shortages. That's true for fiscal year 18 and is continuing to be true for fiscal year 19. There are some local bargaining unit agreements that might interfere with this. But that's something to discuss with hiring managers, or if you have a point of contact at a given VA. Just remember that psychologists awaiting licensure can be hired as graduate psychologists. So again, getting hired out of internship means you would come in at a GS-11. After postdoc would be a GS-12, and then once you're 2 years postdoctoral and have received your license, that would qualify you for a GS-13. The only other thing I wanted to highlight on this slide, again, with the once you've trained in the VA, you are considered part of the VA family, and we would welcome you back even if there was some time between you finishing your training and looking for a new position. So just because you're not a current trainee doesn't mean that you cannot be non-competitively hired. That is an option that's also available to former trainees. I do encourage people to keep in touch with supervisors, like Lisa was saying, attending VA presentations locally at APA, at the Psychology Leadership Conference. There's so much out there that the VA is available to help you with. Okay, so this one is working. In looking at some of the common barriers for hiring trainees, one of the primary ones is this language that is based on, it talks about applicants needing to meet the qualification standards of the position at the time of when the position closes. In actuality, an applicant should be evaluated based on their qualifications at the time that they're getting hired or onboarded. This is something that is a good time to reach out to, can be a good time to reach out to a hiring manager or an HR point of contact. This can especially come up when a position is being listed at a GS 11 to 13, and like Lisa was saying, a license is not required to come on board as a GS 11 or 12. Again, applying veterans' preference to occupations listed in the most recent critical shortage occupation list. Psychology is exempt from this in 2019. I would really encourage you to use the trainee.recruitment@va.gov email address. This is something that's used by the Office of Academic Affiliation, and I relied on during my own job search. They had a number of resources available. They're an incredibly strong proponent of retaining trainees, and they've put together a myth-busting fact sheet that they can share with HR departments that was really insightful for me in advocating for myself when I was looking for my own position. So this one I'm going to encourage you to check out on the slide deck as well. But just some tips for success with applications, which hopefully you know some of these already from applying for internship and postdoc, but tailor your CV and cover letter for the job. Demonstrate that you meet or are going to meet the education, training, licensure, specialized experience requirements. If you don't highlight that, there is a chance that you could be disqualified or not given the appropriate amount of consideration when applications are being reviewed. If you are applying on USA Jobs, make sure, again, everything is uploaded to the site. Check, double check, make sure that you're uploading the right version of your cover letter for the right position. It becomes really easy to have these kind of careless mistakes. And do your research on the programs. If you have a point of contact there, great. If not, there's a lot of information available on the VA website for each of these facilities you might be applying to. One thing I did want to highlight, and we've been talking about licensure kind of throughout this presentation, but I found it helpful to highlight where I was in my own licensure journey on my materials. So saying something like I'm sitting for EPPP on this date, or I passed the EPPP and I'm waiting final paperwork from the state that I was getting licensed in. Those kind of details can be helpful. Again, if you've trained in the VA, hopefully you're already familiar with performance-based interviewing. There's some different questions here about kind of what a typical PBI question look like. Follow up with that link that has samples of performance-based interviewing questions. Use as many examples as possible and update your examples. The ones that you used for internship and postdoc applications might not be as specific as you want to use on a application for a position in a PTSD clinic or a PCNHI clinic. They should display your ability to handle complex cases, seek consultation when needed, working as a member of an interprofessional team, but also contributing to that interprofessional team. When you're in the interview itself, have a notepad handy, knowing that these are going to be multi-part questions. Take notes, take a moment to compose your thoughts before you dive into a question, and use your familiarity with VA. If one of the questions is about a veteran who was suicidal, did you alert or coordinate with the local suicide prevention coordinator? Did you complete a suicide safety plan using the template in CPRS? Make sure you don't undersell your familiarity with the VA processes. And I always found it helpful to have not just an example, but a backup example as well. So again, another thing to think about when you're preparing for these interviews. Once you are selected, once you receive a verbal or contingent job offer, there are some steps that take place between you accepting and having the formal offer. So you do need to pass a physical and a drug test if randomly selected. That will be scheduled for you and takes place at a VA facility. There might be the potential, if you're not in the same location, to have that be done at a different VA facility. That's something to talk to the hiring manager about, or your HR rep. Enrolling vet probe, where you do all of your credentialing, having fingerprints taken, looking at college transcripts, and getting all these fun documents off to HR. Really quick, before we wrap up, I wanted to talk about my own recent journey with getting hired into the VA. I did my internship and postdoc with the VA in different sites. When it came time to look for a job, I decided that I wanted to look outside the area where I had done my postdoc. I targeted specific areas of the country where I knew I wanted to put down roots, and then started looking for jobs with particular interests or based on my own specialized training. I started my search in April of 2016. Did a number of networking and had a great experience at the Psychology Leadership Conference that led into a number of interviews. The verbal offer I ended up getting came from a USA Job post that I responded to. And I began my work the last week of December, which was a few weeks later than planned, but we made it happen. Aside from USA Jobs, the VA Psychology Leadership Conference, which this year is May 29th and 30th, and I would highly encourage you to go to. I also used the recruiters. I used the Take a Closer Look at VA program, which is mostly been absorbed by the Mental Health Hiring Initiative when it comes to psychologists. I reached out to chiefs directly and was sharing my CV around. And my primary point of feedback would be to start early. Right now is really a great time to be reaching out to chiefs, talking about if there's going to be an opportunity for non-competitive hiring, and looking at positions being posted on USA Jobs. If something is being posted at a GS-13 or as hiring internal candidates only, it can be fair game to reach out to them to see if they would consider hiring someone at a GS-11 or 12, or if they're wanting to hire someone who might be considered external, because unfortunately trainees are not full-time employees and are considered external. And again, stay in touch with your HR point of contact and hiring manager throughout the process. I think there's a lot of opportunities for things to fall by the wayside, and really you want to make sure that you're staying on top of this and advocating for yourself as much as possible. I'm going to pause it there to make sure that we leave some time for Q&A, although I've been seeing a lot of a lot of chatter in the box. But I wanted to open up the lines to the other presenters to see if they had comments.
It does look like Dr. Kearney and Dr. Moore have been on it in answering some of these questions. There is one last question that that was put into the, oh, actually, no, there's a few more coming in here. So one question from Jesse, do you know if there's any ongoing advocacy within the VA to move psychologists to the same standards as an MD with respect to starting annual leave? Any responses from our
Yeah, this
speakers?
is Lisa, Monica. That would mean really move to the Title 38 within the Association of VA Psychology Leaders and Division 18. Now that they can do advocacy work, there's been a lot of talk about advocating to Congress to move psychologists under Title 38, but until that happens, no, that will not be able to be changed. That being said, as I noted earlier, the longer you're in VA, the more time you accrue. So you start off with earning 4 hours per pay period, then it moves up to 6 hours to pay period, then at 15 years it's 8 hours per pay period. So it does increase over time.
Great, thank you, Dr. Kearney. Let's see here, we have another question from Irina. How do you find out who the chiefs are at each location?
Matt, you want to do that or you want me to?
Yeah, if you want to do that one, that'd be great. I know I can find it, but on outward facing, that's a great question.
Yeah, I think there's a couple of different ways. If you're in the VA system, you know, a harder way to do this, but you can, is there is a listserv for facility mental health leaders, an email group, and so you can look up that email group and right-click and kind of scroll down the address list and look at the names of the facilities and find out who the chief is or deputy chief is. There's also a VHA National Psychology Chiefs list. Again, you can do a right-click and scroll through there. The Association of VA Psychology Leaders is a sister organization to VA Section in Division 18. On their website, they have a listing, and Josh has it right there. The problem with that is it doesn't always stay up to date, so you can do that with a grain of salt. If you're a trainee at a particular location, I would hope your chief knows other chiefs, so it's good to kind of go through them when trying to connect. Matt, did I miss anything?
No, actually, and that's the one piece about this is if you already are within the VA, it's so important to network as much as you can through your own local leadership. People know people, and reaching out that way, they can often track down both not only psychology leads, but also program leads that psychologists might be involved with. So if you're interested in residential programs or SUD programs, they can often help you get linked up with the different program managers at facilities in those areas.
I see a few more people typing.
Okay, while we're waiting, Josh Rinker, how did you get an email that's Joshua Rinker 1?
There is I was required to use my full legal name I used to be Josh.Rinker on postdoc, and apparently there's a Joshua Rinker in IT somewhere in the southeast. So I would encourage interns and postdocs to back up any information between years, because there's the potential you could lose it all.
Very, very good advice, Josh.
Are there three other Lisa Kearneys floating around out there?
Well, one of them's me when I was on as a practicum student. The other one who's a dentist who got very tired of my email and just left the VA. She couldn't handle it anymore. Oh, this is a great question. I'm attending the VA Psychology Leadership Conference, which Josh just said. What networking tips can you share? I'll share one, and then my colleagues here probably have others. This was the best piece of advice that my chief gave me when I attended this meeting as a postdoc, Steve Holliday. And he later told me he was just kidding. But he told me, I want you to go to every social hour, and at each social hour you are required to meet 10 new people. So go and shake people's hands, and then introduce yourself, find out what they do, and then they give you a list of names with everyone I want you to write down, and then you need to follow up with at least 5 people after the conference. So I did that because my chief told me to do it. It was probably the best piece of advice that I got, was really put myself out there and move around. How about you guys? What are other options that you have?
This is Josh. I'll also make a plug for some of the trainee-specific events that happen there. So there is a trainee dinner where you go out to dinner with the other interns and postdocs that are there, and there are a number of illustrious guests, including the APA president, people from central office. I had a lovely dinner. One of my people at the table was Heather Kelly, who's the APA liaison for Veterans Affairs. And there is also a hiring breakfast on Thursday morning of the conference that is a great opportunity to hear about what positions are being open and potential non-competitive hiring opportunities.
The one thing I'd add is don't sit next to your friends. There are multiple tables at Avapal. Get out, sit at new tables, although sometimes people stake their claims. But, force that opportunity to go out and meet people at the tables in the larger sessions, and also go to those sessions clearly that you have interest in, and begin to talk to those people sitting next to you.
So we have one question here from Marjorie. I am a retired officer of the Colombian Navy. Is there an opportunity to work from here?
And my understanding, and others please correct me, is that there are lots of opportunities for virtual employees, but virtual employees must still be located within the United States. Because we have to be associated with a home station, a home VA station. That's my understanding. Does anyone else have other knowledge that I may not be aware of?
That is my understanding as well, unless you're in a U.S. territory like Puerto Rico,
right.
Which is not necessarily a state, but it is definitely a territory. In Guam, we have VA facilities in Guam. But again, that's a U.S. territory.
So we have a few more minutes if there's any other questions. So, I see some typing.
Monica, there was a question about commonly missed negotiation opportunities that applicants might not consider after you've received an offer. I will say that some of these things like EDRP or reimbursement for relocation will be posted at the top, but that doesn't necessarily mean that it can't be negotiated for. I don't know if anyone else has any comments about that.
Yeah, I would look very closely at postings. Things like EDRP, relocation, those things are supposed to be in the posting, as Josh was referencing. Very hard to get any of that afterwards, and usually impossible unless there's some kind of special activity going on within VA. Things to think about, though, are when you're given an offer, is if it's a position and you're wanting to do other, do particular activities within that position, to talk about that with the service chief early on. So, for example, if you got hired in PTSD treatment, but you also have a strong love of substance use disorder treatment, to also be talking about might there be a possibility for me to work half a day in the substance use disorder clinic, or to work with the trainees, or to do these different things. I would bring those up in negotiation as well. I've always been happy to talk with people about tours of duty. Some people may have children, or they're taking care of elderly parents and they need to get out at a certain time. Earlier would be better. If I can accommodate that in clinic, I certainly will try to do that. Those kinds of things.
Yeah, and I was going to definitely mention that piece, Lisa. Thank you for that. Sometimes the VA, takes their mission seriously, and, tours sometimes can be accommodated around that mission, sometimes can't. But if you have certain demands in your life that that would be helpful for you to talk about what your tour of duty would be. That's awesome, as well as things like your start date, when you'd actually be needed to start. And there's often a lot of bureaucratic hoops that have to go through before bringing you on board. But then once those hoops have been jumped, it does become a point of discussion about, okay, when are you going to actually come on board? And that can often be negotiated.
Looks like there's also a question about step increases. Jesse, feel free to email me afterwards. This is not, private material. It talks about what warrants step increases within the VA, and I know I've benefited from this. Things like board certification will earn you a step increase. I think there was something on ABEP in most facilities who honor that. There also could be step increases, like say you become the next president of Division 18. There's steps for professional achievements that you get, or if you get a particular award, or if research is not part of your duties, but yet you're publishing regularly. There's all kinds of different examples of step increases. The problem is they're not guaranteed, and so you need to submit as soon as you've reached whatever qualification that is, usually within the same month in which you get it. That goes up to be reviewed by your PSB, your Professional Standards Board, but your facility director ultimately has the call on whether to honor that or not based on current budgetary concerns. So some sites, this is no problem. Other sites, it's been more of a problem.
This is Monica. So I'm mindful of the time that we are coming to the end of our hour here. If there are further questions, would it be okay for attendees to email our panel here?
Absolutely.
Well, of course, we'd love that. This is Matt. Yes, please do email us.
That's great. I did want to say thank you to everyone for attending, and I'd like to thank our speakers. I really wish that I had this type of presentation when I was looking for a job years ago, and I've learned a lot as you guys were going through each of your tips and the slides. And please remember to download our slides to be able to see all the graphics that were unavailable in the presentation today. And if there are any other questions regarding Division 18 in the VA section, please download our brochure, which is also under our downloadable files here on our presentation site. Thank you to everyone, and we also have an advocacy webinar that will be happening tomorrow, and hope to be able to see some people there. Thank you.